progress has been made within the first 31 months of this administration. However, as was the case with previous administrations, the current government appears to be merely patching the cracks on the wall. This administration anchored its policy outlook on three main thrusts. 1, security. 2, job creation through diversification. And 3, anti-corruption. Yet, all around us are signs of retrogression. As of June 2015, the unemployment rate was 8.2% of our labor force of 74 million people, meaning that about 6 million Nigerians were unemployed in June 2015. By September 2017 last year, despite such efforts as N-Power and a range of policies aimed at improving enterprise development and facilitating job creation, the unemployment rate had risen to 18.8% of labor force of 85.1 million people, indicating that between 2015 and 2017, the number of unemployed Nigerians rose from about 66 million to almost 16 million people. On diversification, despite ongoing efforts, reports indicate that oil continues to significantly dominate Nigeria's export revenue, leading to the shortfall in foreign currency in the first half of this administration. In essence, we have been unable to export much beyond crude, as oil still accounts for over 90% of total export revenue. Just like crude, our economy is very crude. The ineffectiveness of the anti-corruption war is seen in the loss of crucial corruption cases. For instance, in April 2017, the federal government lost 4 high-profile corruption cases involving Orubebe, Ademola, Madam Patience. 4 high-profile corrupt in 96 hours. These losses are in addition to bizarre developments such as the failure of the government to confirm a substantive chairman for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, despite the fact that the same political party controls the executive and the legislature, not to mention the public showdown, shall I call it street fight, between EFCC and Department of State Services officials, or the opposition of the Director General of the DSS to the confirmation of the acting chairman of the EFCC. Furthermore, nothing indicts the current government greater than its failure in one key performance area that ought to be its strength: security. Despite recent setbacks, we acknowledge the gains in the war against Boko Haram, but highly disturbing is the mayhem being continually unleashed by herdsmen on communities in different states across the country, including Benue, Taraba, Plateau, Adamawa, Kaduna, Enugu, Edo, and Ogun states, leaving trails of weeping and wailing. Is Nigeria in another civil war? This government will have to answer. The recent killings in Benue state are akin to the last straw that is set to break the camel's back. Herdsmen attacks and the deliberate civil silence of the Nigerian state. Not only has the government failed to stop these killings across the country, it has done so against the backdrop of conspiratorial silence, choosing rather to label such attacks as an issue of communal misunderstanding, as the Inspector General of Police recently did in respect of the Benue attacks. It has treated the menace with kids' gloves, even after the Global Tourism Index 2015 described militant herdsmen as the 4th most deadly group of 2014. Worse still, some of these killings have reportedly been carried out in collusion with the military. Recently, the secretary to the Adamawa state government, Umar Bindir, justified the bearing of arms by the herdsmen, but failed to tell Nigerians where the herdsmen get their guns from and with which government agency these guns are registered. Who authorized them to bear arms? who gave them immunity against Section 3 of the Robbery and Firearms Special Provisions Act 1990, which prescribes punishment for illegal possession of arms? Who monitors the use of these guns? Why have the relevant government agencies failed to act? In particular, why has the name Department of State Service, DSS, become synonymous with the phrase deliberate sinful silence? Or is it now the Department of Sinful Silence? As expected, due to the incapacity of the states, not even the anti-grazing laws of states like Benue have succeeded in dealing with these issues. These one-sided and incomprehensive legislations by state governments that lack the constitutional powers to provide security for their people have yielded no result, little or no results. Therefore, the federal government has become complicit for the following 4 reasons. Reason number 1, by not advancing and vigorously executing policies aimed at preempting or preventing these killings, even with sufficient warnings. I'm reminded of the open letter to President Muhammadu Buhari by a former Nigerian High Commissioner to Canada. And the Second Republic Senator, Professor Iromuwase Haga, permit me to quote excerpts from that letter. He wrote, "Your Excellency, Mr. President, I am pained that you ignore my advice in my private memorandum to you dated July 2016, 30th July. I had warned you of the possibility of a horrendous genocide in Benue, Plateau, Taraba, Southern Kaduna, and Southern Adamawa states. I asked you to be proactive and stop the genocide that has been ongoing, but which will burst out in the open and shock the world within 18 months. Your office replied my letter thanking me immensely and giving me the assurances that the advice will be heeded. I regret to now inform you that it is 17 months since my warning and prediction, and your government did nothing to preempt or prevent the genocide." Number 2, the federal government has become complicit by failing to make it an issue of importance in national discourse. Despite the antecedents of the marauders, including the recent Adamawa incident, Mr. President, in his New Year address to the nation, did not consider the menace or the pain of victims of previous attacks worth a mention in his address.